And a good Tuesday to all of you. Thanks for joining us as always. It is very much appreciated. We're recording live from a hotel room in Jersey, just in case you hear some noises behind me. Trust me, everything is okay. But we're on location for the last time this week, thankfully. Don't forget to rate and review Apple Pods and Spotify. Also, like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Every thumbs up means an awful lot. Every comment means an awful lot. And subscriptions, trying to get to 1,250 subscribers within the next week or so. Let's try to do that. Again, thank you for all of the support. Let's start with the breaking news yesterday. I was driving from Virginia Beach up to Jersey and found out that Jack Jones was cut by the Patriots. Jeff Howe posted this on X yesterday. The Patriots glossed over red flags from college that caused other teams to remove Jones from their draft boards. Looked like it'd work in 2022, but they didn't believe he was the same player in 2023 and decided to part ways. Jeff then had more. There had been a handful of events that led to this, including more recently when he fell out of favor and lost trust among the defense and his play had deteriorated. The team didn't feel a turnaround in performance was coming. A handful of events. A handful. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. 5 strikes and you're out, apparently, is the policy with Bill Belichick when we're talking about defensive backs, when we're talking about guys that he drafted last year, right? 5 strikes and you're out. Jack Jones gone, not a surprise. The guy doesn't get it. He just simply doesn't get it. Think about what the Patriots did for Jack Jones. Number one, they drafted him. That was not a guarantee, which we'll get into in a minute. But they drafted the young man. They brought him into the system. He did some things late last year that led to his suspension. They still kept him on the roster. Then, of course, we know what happened at Logan Airport during the offseason. They protected him during that time. They believed in him. They kept him on the roster. Late for curfew, doing some other things apparently, away from the field and maybe some on the field. And Belichick still took this dude to Germany this past weekend. The Patriots did everything they could within the fiber of their being to make Jack Jones work in Foxborough. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the guy doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. If you saw Jones, there's pictures of him now online over the weekend, sitting in Germany on Sunday on the bench, really just kind of staying away from the defensive players, sulking on the bench because he wasn't playing a lot. He truly doesn't understand what's going on, right? He doesn't understand the repercussions of actions. He doesn't understand why he might not be playing as much as he wants to. He just doesn't get it. Not being engaged. The least you can be is engaged. When you're screwing up, when you're showing up late for curfew, when you're acting a fool away from the field, causing all sorts of issues, when you're not playing particularly well, the least you can do is be engaged and talk to your teammates. Be involved. Look like you actually care. And none of that was happening with Jack Jones. Even though everything was going on in the background with him, he still did not prove to anyone that he took this seriously enough to be a true professional athlete. And that's where you have to draw the line. You got to say goodbye. And now we go to Jack Jones, the draft story, because let's not forget that Jones was a day 2 reach, and not because of talent. He was a day 2 reach because a lot of teams looked at Jones and said, wait a minute, what? No, we got to take that guy off of the draft board. There's no way that we can have this guy on the draft board. There's just no chance that we can do that. We're not playing around here. And Doug Kyde posted this on X yesterday. Jones is a talented player. Again, there was no questioning his talent. Super talented. We saw it at times during his rookie season. The guy could play. Little boomer bust, takes risks, but he can still play. Doug Kyde posted yesterday, Jones is a talented player, but he was also undersized, an older prospect with serious off-field concerns. So 3 strikes against Jones in college. There's a trend here. There's a theme with Jack Jones. 3 strikes in college, apparently 5 strikes or more in the NFL, but 3 strikes in college. And Kyde continued, and now Jones didn't last 2 full seasons. Pretty serious reach in the 4th round. Any of those issues could have pushed him to day 3, but all of them combined, you took the risk. You understood that this guy was very talented, but you took the risk to spend a 4th round pick on him, bring him into the program, and now he lasts less than 2 years. Another shot to Bill Belichick's drafting record. There's no denying that. You could have possibly drafted Jones in the 5th round, 6th round. Who knows? He might have ended up being a UDFA, just like J.C. Jackson was. But you decided to spend a 4th round pick. 4th round picks are valuable. They're not great, but they're valuable. You can hit on a lot of 4th round picks. And to spend a 4th round pick on a guy that had that much baggage was a huge risk. And it obviously did not pay off for Belichick or the Patriots. If you're missing on your risks, right? If you're missing on the reaches, you have to hit your top picks. You have to hit your early picks. And we know that Belichick recently has not done nearly enough of that. Bill Barnwell wrote about it on ESPN.com this week. I hope to get to that story at some point this week because it was tremendous work by Barnwell. But Bill Belichick has not consistently hit on early picks, and he's taking risks in middle to late rounds, and he's not hitting on those either. That is the recipe for a disaster when you talk about the draft. So you miss on reaches, you miss on the early picks. The 2022 draft now looks like it could be a terrible, terrible draft for the Patriots. I'm not going to say it is just yet because we're not even done with 2 years, but it's pretty difficult to argue already at this point, okay? Unless Tyquan Thornton becomes something special, or Cole Strange becomes an all-pro guard, or Marcus Jones comes back from injury and pops as a Pro Bowler. I mean, the draft, you go player by player. Cole Strange, 1st round. I said reach at the time because of position. Cole Strange so far has not looked like a top 3 guard in the NFL, which is what he should look like when you spend a 1st round pick on an offensive guard. Tyquan Thornton, 2nd round pick, bust so far. Marcus Jones showed some flashes on special teams last year, showed some flashes a little bit defensively, not a ton early this season. Now he's hurt, which was a question about Marcus Jones. Again, undersized, just like Jack Jones was. Jones is skinny. Marcus is just small frame, shorter, right? So Marcus Jones, an unknown right now. Hopefully he pops. We have no idea. Jack Jones, gone. Pierre Strong, gone. Bailey Zappi, released before the season, has not been good when he's played. Kevin Harris, not here. Sam Roberts, hanging around. Chasen Hines, gone. Andrew Stuber, worthless. I mean, that is a putrid draft. Unless Marcus Jones or Cole Strange or Tyquan Thornton pop, and I mean pop, then you're looking at a draft that you wasted in 2022. No bueno. Not even close to being good enough. Now, let's go back to the idea before we move on to what the quarterback plan should be, because I really want to talk about that. Also, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, lots of reporting over the weekend about them mutually parting ways at the end of this season. I'll get into that as well. But let's go back to this idea that Jack Jones was brought to Germany. He was brought to Germany to play in that game on Sunday, and he's cut on Monday. What the hell are we doing? How does he possibly get on that plane and go to Germany and you're cutting him the next day? Meanwhile, J.C. Jackson stayed home and he's still on the team. So you benched Jack Jones last week early on in that game, right? You end up playing him. He doesn't play very well. Then you bring him to Germany. I think he played like 10, 11 snaps, whatever it was, in Germany on Sunday against the Colts. And then you come home, and at that point, you saw enough, and you decide to cut him. J.C. Jackson doesn't even make the trip to Germany after being benched early against the Commanders. And J.C. Jackson reportedly decided to not go to the team hotel the night before the Commanders game. But somehow J.C. Jackson doesn't make the trip to Germany, but he's still on the team. Can somebody tell me what is going on? The inconsistencies are maddening. I have no clue what is going on. If you're going to cut Jack Jones, why don't you cut J.C. Jackson? J.C. Jackson wasn't even practicing with the team. Jack Jones was. J.C. Jackson wasn't given the opportunity to travel to Germany because the team is so down on him. Jack Jones was. So why is Jack Jones cut and J.C. Jackson is still in Foxborough? How does that make any sense? It's crazy. It's crazy. It's inconsistent and it's bananas. Makes no sense. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills watching how this roster is handled right now. So many questions of what the hell is going on. Why are they making these decisions? Why does one guy get punished, another guy doesn't get punished? Just how do you look at this and walk away saying that Bill Belichick has full control of the program? Like, how do you walk away from this and say to yourself that the head coach has a full handle on what's going on? Don't forget, rate and review Spotify, Apple Pods. Also, if you're watching, listening on YouTube, give us that thumbs up. Means the world to us. Every thumbs up means more eyeballs as we try to build this community, build an alternative to other things in Boston for you sports fans. Comment. Those are fun. I went back and forth last night when I arrived at the hotel and some of the comments. Always enjoy doing that. And don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 1,250 subscriptions within the next week or so. All right, so what do you do at quarterback? That's the next question. Bill Barnwell, on that article, ESPN.com, I want to dive into it a little bit more later in the week, but Barnwell did write about Mac and whether or not he would bench Mac Jones. Barnwell said he would not bench Mac Jones. He wrote, over the rest of the season, no, it's a waste of time. Zappe enjoyed a brief run as a cult hero for the Patriots in 2022, but he has posted a 34.2 QBR on 125 dropbacks over the past 2 seasons. If you're wondering, Mac Jones has been better, 38.6 over that same stretch for QBR. Barnwell writes, the Patriots cut Zappe after camp in August, which tells us they weren't afraid of losing him to another team. And they were right as Zappe cleared waivers. So Barnwell says, no, I still wouldn't bench Mac Jones because you don't have anything better behind Mac Jones. I don't think anybody's denying that Mac was broken against Indy. I don't think anybody is denying that Mac was broken against Dallas and broken against New Orleans. If you want to have different gradations of broken, I think he was less broken in between the Saints game and what we saw in Germany. But it hasn't been good enough. Outside of the Bills game, it hasn't been good enough. Not nearly good enough. And we all know that at this point. Belichick's been asked about the quarterback position. He's been non-committal. He's kind of deflected. Even this morning, he deflected. Is Mac Jones your QB1? There's lots of things to figure out, whatever he mumbled into the microphone. He's deflecting. That tells me that Mac is certainly not set to be the QB1 against the Giants when they come back from the bye. If Belichick thought that, Belichick would say that Mac is their quarterback. The fact that he's deflecting, the fact that he's tap dancing around it tells you that he is not sold on Mac. He should not be sold on Mac. None of us should be sold on Mac at this point. That interception was that bad against the Colts on Sunday that you look at it and say, all right, we have to now figure this thing out. And it's not to say that the Patriots haven't been thinking of moving on from Mac Jones. I think they have. It's been reported. It was reported after the Dallas game that if Zappe or Will Grier showed them anything in practice, that Mac probably would have been benched back then. He was allowed to continue to play because they looked at Zappe and Grier and said, no thanks. And I know that's hard for some of you to believe. Those who think Mac Jones is the worst quarterback that's ever been created. But they looked at Zappe, they looked at Grier, and at least up until that game on Sunday, they did not think those two guys, either of them, was the answer. They did not think that either of them could replace Mac Jones or should replace Jones. So what do you do? $1 million question. What do you do at quarterback now? You're 2-8. You're going into the bye week. You play the Giants afterwards. The Giants are terrible. I think the Giants are the worst team in football now that Kyler Murray is back in Arizona. Giants are brutal. So what do you do at quarterback? What's the plan? Do you have a plan? The good news, first and foremost, is you have 2 weeks to figure it out. You've got 2 weeks to figure out who is going to be the quarterback against the Giants, and I think you have to absolutely make the most of that time. And what I would do is I would increase Will Grier's snaps at practice, especially this week. Now, it's a little bit shorter of a week because the CBA states that the guys, they have to be off over the weekend and all of that. But I would give Grier some snaps this week, more snaps than he has been getting over the past several weeks. Zappe has not proven to be the guy to back up Mac. It was so bad that you decided to activate Malik Cunningham, who you then cut. This season is an atrocity with the roster. You decided to not activate Zappe as the backup. You activated Malik Cunningham in Vegas going back a few weeks ago. You released Zappe before the season kicked off. So you obviously don't believe Zappe's the guy. And Zappe went out there and did nothing to say otherwise against the Colts with that terrible pick to end the game. So, Belichick told the media that it's been difficult for Grier to take a true step forward, to get a true handle of things, because he's been the third quarterback at practice, i.e. he's not getting a lot of reps. Well, hey, you've got nothing to lose. Give the guy reps this week. Give Grier reps this week. See if he can make the most of those reps. If Grier takes a step forward, now you have somebody that's in the mix, and you wouldn't feel so uncomfortable in playing that guy. Zappe's not the answer. Mac looks broken. Move on to quarterback number 3 on the list, on the potpourri list of quarterbacks that you have, the poo-poo platter right now, and bring in somebody like Grier and say, we're going to give him more snaps this week and see if this guy can start to get it, see if this guy can earn the shot. Because you got 2 weeks to figure it out. If Grier doesn't do well this week, then unfortunately you have to go back to Zappe versus Mac, which has been the same story all year long, and Mac has consistently played better than Zappe in practice, and when Zappe's had a chance to play in games, he's been atrocious. He's been atrocious in garbage time. He's been atrocious against backups. He's been atrocious since the beginning of camp. There's not been one moment of Bailey Zappe, whether it was camp, preseason, garbage time, last week, practice during the season. There hasn't been one time this coaching staff has felt that he's been better than Mac Jones. So give Grier a chance. If Grier sucks this week, then you're back to Zappe versus Jones. That's why I think even though Mac it looks broken, and even though I've said that I would absolutely look at the alternatives, and I'd have a very hard time playing Mac against the Giants after that interception. Even with that said, I'm not going to write Mac off from starting this season at some point. I'm just not going to do that. I can't do that. It'd be ridiculous given the situation, the circumstances at that position on this team. I don't think you can write anybody off. Just can't. So what I would do is, again, play Grier this week, give him snaps, see if he improves. If he shows no improvement next week, then you go back to Mac versus Zappe as you rotate snaps with Mac and Zappe this week. And if Grier shows up, if Grier does practice better, if he shows signs of improvement, then you can go to a Grier versus whoever wins, quote unquote, between Mac and Zappe at practice this week. That's what I would do. Not a perfect plan, because guess what? Every option sucks at this point. There's not going to be a perfect plan. I'd make one of these three guys earn it. Whoever looks better at practice gets the inside track. Now, if Grier looks close to Mac or Zappe, I'm letting Grier have a shot. If it's close, even if Mac is nipping at the heels of Grier, if it's a close battle, even if Mac is slightly better than Grier, slightly, or Zappe's slightly better than Grier, I'll give Grier the shot, because Mac and Zappe have had more than enough opportunity in games that count to prove themselves. So I would give Grier the shot against the Giants if he looks capable, if he looks like he's at least somewhat close to the other two guys. You have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose. But I don't think you just hand the job to Grier if he's a disaster, because guess what? He might be worse than Mac Jones. I know people say that you can't get worse. He might be worse. We don't know. He's still trying to learn this very difficult scheme. He still might not have a clue. So that's how I would do it. That's what I would do. Grier gets snaps this week. If he proves himself to be capable, then he's got a little bit of a quarterback competition next week between he and whoever's better between Zappe and Mac this week in practice. And then if that's close, Grier gets the start. If Grier can't be close to those two guys, then there's no use of playing Grier. He has to prove that he's at least close to the other two to get that shot. If he is, give him the shot. Take the flyer. Nothing to lose. Rate and review. Spotify, Apple Pods. Don't forget also to give us that thumbs up on YouTube. We always love those thumbs up, the comments, the subscriptions. Try to get to 1,250 subscriptions within the next week or so. All right, let's wrap things up with Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. A lot of reporting over the weekend. Of course, Kraft spoke in Germany. Didn't have much to say. We covered that yesterday. Kraft has been quiet with the local media. So what's going to happen? Well, Gary Myers, who's, relatively close to the situation at the New York Daily News, he knows some guys involved, posted on X over the weekend. I don't think there's any way the Patriots owner Robert Kraft just flat out fires Belichick. By firing him, Kraft would give up his right to compensation if Belichick takes another job. That's why if they part ways, Kraft will give Belichick the opportunity to find a new job, and then he will work out a trade. Kraft is a businessman, and Belichick is one of his most valuable assets. Billionaires don't give away valuable assets. Kraft-backed Belichick wanted to move on from Brady, most likely against his better judgment. Kraft loved Belichick 23 years ago and backed him in every way because he won him 6 Super Bowls and turned his less than $200 million investment into a $7 billion monster. But, Myers writes, the love is long gone from the relationship. I think they will announce after the season they have mutually agreed to each move on. If that happens, Belichick will, in effect, be franchise tagged with compensation required. Diana Rossini, very tapped in nationally. In The Athletic, she wrote, I don't expect anything to be determined with so much season remaining, but if people I talked to had to bet, their money is on a mutual parting of the ways at the end of the season. Also, sprinkle this on top, Ian Rappaport, his report a few weeks ago that kind of set the world afire, thinking about how Belichick had this long-term extension, multiple years, whatever he said. Well, Rappaport clarified his report, and he reported over the weekend on the NFL Network that Belichick's contract runs through 2024. So precisely, I said this going back a few weeks ago. If I'm going to believe anybody, I would believe the Tom Currans of the world, the Greg Bedards of the world. Those guys had said, and I think Burt Breer had said as well, that this was not some long-term contract, that it was likely through 2024. This wasn't 2025, 2026, and those guys ended up being correct. The contract extension, I did a podcast on it. You can check out that content on the channel. It is there for your viewing pleasure. I talked about what I thought happened and how they probably ripped up the last year of a contract for Belichick and gave him an extra year tacked on with maybe an option at best for him. And so we now know it's going through 2024, which means they are not handcuffed to Belichick. They're just not. He's got one season left on his deal after this season. And you have to poop or get off the pot, as they say with Belichick, right? Because look, here's how it's going to work. You either let Belichick walk into a lame duck season, because I don't think there's any way on God's green earth, aside from a crazy turnaround, and I'm talking crazy turnaround, I don't think there's any way that you could give Bill Belichick a contract extension after this season. There's no way that I could see that unless they win, their final 7 games. If they go on a 7-game winning streak and finish the season at 9-8, maybe it'd be part of a conversation. But I find it almost impossible that Belichick would get even 1 year tacked on to his existing contract. So if you're not going to tack on a year, which seems incredibly unlikely, you don't want to allow him to walk into a lame duck season with full autonomy of the organization and being the head coach. That'd be irresponsible by Robert Kraft. You never let, at least you try to never let a manager or a head coach, you try to never let those people walk into a lame duck season. You want security for your organization. So it's poop or get off the pot time with Belichick. You're either tacking on more time or you're walking away from him. And I don't know anybody who could look at this season and look at what's happened recently with this team and say that Belichick deserves an extra year or 2 tacked on. And if you're one of those people, I don't know, you might be related to Bill Belichick. You might love Bill Belichick in some odd way. I just don't see it. Aside from a crazy turnaround, it is time. It's time. We went over the 2022 draft. There have been lots of other misses in the draft. There have been misses in free agency. GM Belichick has missed over and over and over again. The record is 27-33 post Tom Brady. Not good enough. The statute of limitations has to come up at some point. You can't allow him to continue to lead this program in a sub-500 football over and over and over again. That would be madness. 27-33 post Brady. You can't let him walk without compensation because that would be ridiculous. Right now, at this point, you are in the asset gathering stage. You need to gather all the assets that you possibly can gather to make this team better moving forward. And if you have Belichick, even if he's not as sexy of a chip as he might have been going back a few months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, he's still a chip. It would be similar to not trading Josh Uche at the deadline, which drove me crazy. If you have Bill Belichick and you're going to mutually part ways with him, try to find him a home, get a draft pick or two in return, and draft a couple of young players that might be able to help you in the future. That's what you do. You don't let the guy just walk away. That would be malpractice from Robert Kraft. And Kraft has leverage. Belichick has 1 year left on his deal. Belichick's not going to want to sit out a full season. I don't think he's going to want to take a year of vacation. He's 72 years old? He wants to get to Shula's contract. He wants to get to Shula's record, not his contract. Get to Shula's record, surpass the record, and claim the title as best coach of all time, hands down, with the championships and the wins record and all of that. That's what he wants. And if he takes a year to just sit back on his boat, that's one less year he has to chase down that Shula record. I mean, in his early 70s, he's got to be making some decisions here pretty soon, right? Coaches don't coach most of the time when they're 75, 77, 78 years old. Some do. There are anomalies. Greg Popovich is one in San Antonio. But he's not going to want to sit around and just waste a year in his 70s. He's going to want to coach. And the mutual parting is the most respectful way to do this. And I think it's the way things should be handled. I don't think you disrespect Belichick by firing him in the middle of the season. All of the things that Myers said in his post, I've said before, right? Super Bowl rings, all the wins, the amount of money that Belichick has made Robert Kraft. You don't just slap the guy in the face in the middle of the season and fire him. It would do nothing, absolutely nothing for the team firing Bill Belichick right now. You got a bunch of people. It's very incestuous within Gillette Stadium and that Foxborough facility. You fire Belichick, all hell might break loose. You got even more of a mess. Just let this thing play out. Let it play out. They continue to play this way, they're going to lose a ton of games. The writing will be on the wall. You respectfully part ways mutually. It allows you to retain Belichick as an asset to then trade, and you move the hell on. Speaking of moving the hell on, I'm moving the hell on. Hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget, rate and review Apple Pods and Spotify. Like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Until tomorrow, it's the Nick Cattle Show.